What is good, Price Action Nation? Today I am back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about the only chart patterns you need to become a profitable trader. So without any further waste of time, let's get into it.
Don't think about it. Hey yo, hey yo. On two, mic check. I was in a different zone when
that we're going to be talking about is the falling wedge, right? We're going to be talking about the falling wedge. So let me just write that down. Now this is a very important pattern, the wedges. There's a falling wedge and then there's a rising wedge. So the falling wedge looks something like this. You can have an impulsive move and then it's going to act as a correction, right? It's going to act as a correction. And then you're going to get your impulsive move again, right? So you're going to have your trend line drawn like this just to show your pattern. And this is what we call a falling wedge. The reason why it's called a falling wedge is because price goes up and then it starts to fall and then it goes up again. But that is why it's called a falling wedge. So the falling wedge appears in two forms, right? So let's say we're going down and then you're gonna see price starts to crawl down like this. Price is gonna start to crawl down like this, and then price is gonna reverse. This is still a falling wedge because price is still falling, but it's giving us this wedge pattern. As long as price is giving us a wedge pattern, then it's going to be called a wedge. But in this case, it's going to be called a falling wedge because price is falling towards the downside. Okay, so the next pattern that I'm going to be talking about is the rising wedge. The rising wedge. So for the rising wedge, it's going to be the complete opposite of this, the falling wedge. Now how you spot this is that price will be going down and then it's going to start correcting towards the upside like this. Let me just do that again. Price is going to be falling and then it's going to start correcting like this. It's going to start correcting, giving you a nice wedge, and then afterward you're going to get your next impulsive move. And then you can draw your trend line like this. And there you have it. You have your first kind of a rising wedge. Now here it's called a rising wedge because price will come down and then rise for a bit and then continue furthermore with its downwards movement. So that is why it's called a rising wedge. And then the rising wedge version of this will appear to be like this. Price will be going up and then price will start to crawl towards the upside like this, and then it's gonna drop like this. Now this is showing you that the buyers are losing momentum, they're losing strength, and sellers are getting into the market, they're starting to come into the market, which is why you'll see price drop in this way, right? So my third pattern that I wanted to show you guys was the heads and shoulders. That is the third very important pattern that I wanted you guys to know about. Head and shoulders. Okay, so head and shoulders will look somewhat like this. Price will be going up and will give you your first shoulder, and then you'll get your head, and then price will give you the second shoulder with the retest and a further push towards the downside. Right? So this is what the heads and shoulders looks like. And you'll have something called a neckline right there. This is what we call a neckline. we call this a neckline. So this is where you take your entry. The neckline is basically the point for entries. It's where you will be taking your entries. On the retest of this pattern is where you take your entries. But for more advanced traders, they will take their entries somewhere right here on the second shoulder. But that's for more advanced traders. But let me just give you guys a nice example of how these traders would approach such a situation. Say we have something that looks like this. Let's say price keeps on bouncing here for some reason. Price keeps on bouncing. It has bounced. At least let's just say 3 times. Right, let's say price keeps on bouncing like this. Now you see that you have your nice resistance level. You have a resistance level. Price keeps on rejecting. And then it gave you this false breakout. Then when price comes back again, that's when you know that price is going to be moving downwards. Right, so you'll have your entry and your stop loss over time. So this is how you use the third shoulder as your entry in this pattern. So I have some examples for you guys, but before that, let me show you guys the inverse heads and shoulders, which is basically an inverse of what I just showed you guys. So inverse heads and shoulders, it is obviously the opposite of what I just showed you guys. It will look like this. So just like how the rising wedge is an inverse of the falling wedge, the inverse heads and shoulders is an inverse of this heads and shoulders. So these patterns have their inverses, and then you'll obviously be having your neckline right here, and then you'll have your entries on the retest. But using what I've just showed you guys, you'll have your entries right here. But these patterns work if they go with accordance with your analysis. Your analysis must tell you that price is about to do something like this. So you must have your support level right here. And it's been tested like this example right here. So let me just show you guys the examples that I've prepared for you guys on the live chart. So these are the patterns that I was talking about. This is a falling wedge, what we call a falling wedge right here. Just as explained, price goes up, gives you a nice correction in the form of a falling wedge. And then you got your beautiful retest here, and you can see that you would have capitalized beautifully in such an entry. You would have capitalized beautifully, just as you can see for yourself, right? But as I said, that these patterns appear in 2 versions. But this is still a falling wedge. Let me just put the names on that. We'll just call this the falling wedge 1. And then we'll call this the falling wedge 2. So now, let me just show you guys a quick example of how your analysis would be put together in such a situation. As you guys can see that price rejected right here, rejected right there, but sort of rejecting there and there. Now that price is coming back again, and now it's showing you this pattern that I've just taught you guys, testing. That's when you would expect price to go up, not just randomly. It has to be in a zone where you will expect price to reverse, and then this pattern will present itself as a reversal pattern, right? So let's move on to the rising wedge. Now on the rising wedge, price gives you this beautiful bullish momentum. You can see you got your buys here, excuse me, and then you'll have your consolidation like this. Now this shows that the sellers are coming in, the bears are strong and the buyers are weak, right? This is what That's what this shows you. Now, let me show you guys what I mean when I say it must be with accordance to your analysis. Now, as you guys can see, this is a beautiful resistance level. You have your rejection, rejection, rejection. You can see price turn right there. And obviously, right there, you'll expect your rejection again. And then price turns. But you won't just see these things from nowhere, right? It has to be in a place where you know that you expect price to reverse. So moving on to the falling wedge, the second kind. So let me just name this one. The rising wedge, I mean. So this kind of rising wedge acts as a correction, right? So let me just put a name on this one too. Let's call it rising wedge 2. Because it's also a rising wedge, but it's another kind. It appears after a different impulsive move, because here on this first one we have a bullish impulsive move and then the rising wedge, but on this one we have a bearish impulsive move and then this rising wedge. So they're called rising wedges because price falls and then rises for a little bit as a correction, and then price will then fall, right? So you can see here that we had our beautiful fall and then we had this rising wedge. That's when you would have had your breakout, retest, and then your entry. You would have had your entry right there, stop loss tight, and you would have merged the markets just like that, right? So now I'm going to show you the example of heads and shoulders, right? So heads and shoulders are pretty simple. You can find them everywhere in the charts. So here's my first example right here. So let me just show you the heads and shoulders, and then I'll show you the inverse heads and shoulders. So this is my example. So you can see here that we had this resistance. Now, not looking at this resistance, let me just remove this. You can see that we had this resistance here. That's what we had. And then when price gives you a pattern like this, and you can see that we're rejecting a resistance level that is this strong, because we had our first resistance right there, price reacted, second, third, and then this was the fourth one, right? And then you can see that we had price printed this beautiful pattern for us. And then you can see that you would have obviously capitalized on this. Say you would have entered on your third touch, on your second shoulder. How many pips that is? Maybe your stop loss would have been above the resistance level. You would have milked. Maybe according to your whole analysis, you would have captured this whole move, right? So let's look at the inverse heads and shoulders. So now the inverse heads and shoulders is the same as the original heads and shoulders, but now it's faced upside down, right? So as you guys can see right here, and your second shoulder, you can see that you would have capitalized on this retest and you would have made profit. Look at how tight the stop loss can even be with just these simple patterns that I've showed you guys today. You guys can see for yourselves, these patterns are phenomenal. So my advice is that you guys try these patterns out, try to practice knowing how to spot them there and there in the markets. You can find this on indices, currencies, metals, anywhere, guys. These things are printed by the charts every single day. Those scalp traders, this is for y'all, man. So that's the end of the video, guys. If you like the video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, make sure to comment on what videos you'd like for me to drop next. Peace.
It's A Cubes. Yeah.